This dark chapter in American history should never be forgotten. It is a gang rape of 2 white girls by some black teens, which made everyone in a big shock. No crime has ever been committed in American history, let alone one that never happened. In this video, we will share with you a dark chapter in American history should never be forgotten. If you want to know the full story, stay with us in this video till the end. This will make you aware about the happening and also make you aware about the things from which you have to be concerned. The alleged gang rape of 2 white girls by 9 black teens on a Southern Railway goods run on March the 25th of 1931 resulted in as many trials, convictions, reversals, and retrials. The struggle for justice of the Scottsboro Boys, as the black teens were known, over the ensuing 2 decades made celebrities out of anonymity, launched and ended careers, wasted lives, produced heroes, opened Southern juries to blacks, exacerbated sectional strife, and divided America's political left. This video tells the amazing and tragic tale of a historic event that is frequently left out of history books. The tale of the Scottsboro Boys is presented here. 9 African-American teenagers were charged with raping 2 white ladies on a Southern Railroad goods train in northern Alabama on March the 25th of 1931. When a racially charged fight between passengers broke out, Haywood Patterson, Olin Montgomery, Clarence Norris, Willie Robertson, Andy Wright, Ozzie Powell, Eugene Williams, Charlie Weems, and Roy Wright were looking for a job. A young white man is believed to have stepped on one of the Scottsboro lads' hands to initiate the dispute. When the young white males who were fighting were forced to leave the train, they became so incensed that they made up a tale about how the black men were to blame. When the train arrived in Paint Rock, Alabama, the Scottsboro Boys were confronted by an irate mob and charged with assault. 2 white women who were also traveling on the goods train, Victoria Price and Ruby Bates, were accused of vagrancy and illegal sexual activity. They falsely accused the Scottsboro Boys of rape to get out of those accusations. Before the incident on the goods train, just 4 of the young African-American teens were acquainted. The age range of the teens was 13 to 19. They were all from Georgia and Tennessee, none were from Alabama, and they were trying to find jobs paying a living salary. They were traveling to towns. Andrew and Leroy Wright, 2 of them were brothers. They weren't even born there or had even visited Scottsboro, but as the trials drew more local and international attention, they did. The Scottsboro Boys were the name given to them. As word of the alleged rape spread, it was very contentious allegations given the Jim Crow laws in the South. To stop a lynching, the local sheriff called in the Alabama National Guard as a furious white crowd surrounded the jail. The Scottsboro Boys were immediately found guilty in the first round of trials in April of 1931 by an all-white, all-male jury, who also gave 8 of them the death penalty. 13-year-old Leroy Wright was the youngest defendant, and his trial resulted in a hung jury because one juror preferred life in prison over death. Leroy Wright was imprisoned until 1937. As a result of the declaration of a mistrial, awaiting the outcome of the case against his co-defendants. The Communist Party of the USA's legal wing, or International Labor Defense, organized protests against the verdict in countries all over the world. During that period, the Communists vigorously organized for workers' rights, particularly on behalf of black laborers in the South, along with enlisting the help of the general public by organizing protest rallies and letter-writing campaigns. Because they had enlisted the mothers of the defendants, the ILD and NAACP were able to prevail in their legal battle to represent the 9. With the ILD's backing, the mothers toured the country and abroad, speaking at rallies encouraging action to overturn the verdicts. To allow the lads to file an appeal with the Alabama Supreme Court, the court granted them a stay of execution in June of that year. However, in March of 1932, the Alabama Supreme Court upheld the convictions of 7 of the defendants. Williams was a minor when he was convicted, thus it gave him a second trial. In Powell against Alabama, the U.S. Supreme Court declared in November of 1932 that the Scottsboro defendants' right to counsel had been deprived, infringing on their 14th Amendment right to due process. The Supreme Court overturned the Alabama verdict, setting an important legal precedent for enforcing the right of black Americans to adequate counsel, and remanded the cases to the lower courts. Even though they had a new hope for freedom, the retrial process was slow and contentious, despite overwhelming evidence of the boys' innocence. One of the most convincing pieces of evidence was provided by the accuser. One of the accusers, Ruby Bates, surfaced with a letter in the beginning of 1932. She admitted that her initial charge of rape was false and blamed the Scottsboro police for pushing her into making the claim. The retrial procedure continued to take place to prove that the county had conducted an unfair trial by excluding blacks from the jury. Black leaders from Decatur were summoned by renowned defense attorney Samuel Leibowitz, who was representing the ILD, to testify about the suitability of blacks for jury service. Decatur native Francis Tate, the founder of Celebrating Early Old Town with Art, said the Old Town community of Decatur helped to avert potential attacks by the Ku Klux Klan and other white supremacists on the defendant's witnesses as well as the defendant's lawyers. According to press accounts, the home of one black defense witness, E.L. Lewis, was burned to the ground, and he later died from poisoning. Frank Sykes, a different black defense witness, relocated to Baltimore as a result of harassment and threats. Black reporters covering the case were likewise safeguarded by Old Town residents so that they might publish their stories. The governor enlisted the National Guard to provide additional security for the jail's courthouse during the trial. Leibowitz was accompanied by armed guards during the proceedings. One of the boys, Haywood Patterson, appeared for a second trial before Judge James Horton in 1933. His defense attorney produced a compelling case that the two train passengers had lied by calling a large number of witnesses. Their account did not line up with the medical data or the accounts of other witnesses. On the trial's last day, in a Hollywood-esque twist, Leibowitz pretended to give his closing statement and then called Ruby Bates as a witness for the defense. In her testimony, Bates said the nine did not rape her, and Victoria Price had directed her to make the false accusation. Bates and Price did not want to be prosecuted for violating the Mann Act, a law often used as an excuse to arrest blacks that made it a crime to cross state lines to engage in prostitution or other immoral purposes. Price and Bates accused the 9 black kids in error rather than prosecuting them. The defense appeared unchallengeable, yet the jury found Patterson guilty and recommended execution after only a brief period of discussion. Judge James Horton overturned the jury's verdict and ordered a new trial to begin because he considered it was not justified. Unfortunately, he would lose his judgeship in the upcoming election because of this. The Scottsboro boys were not the only ones to encounter uncooperative juries in the face of strong evidence. Patterson was one of them. Clarence Norris appealed to the Supreme Court after being found guilty in his retrial by a second all-white jury. African Americans were prohibited from participating on juries for African American defendants, according to the 1935 Norris against Alabama ruling. The jury selection process in Alabama was fundamentally racist and went against Norris's 14th Amendment rights. Both Patterson and Norris were retried, found guilty, and given death sentences in late 1933 when the prosecution managed to get their cases in front of a more sympathetic judge. The Alabama Supreme Court unanimously rejected the defense's request for new trials as Leibowitz presented the case for the ILD. As a result, the case was headed for a second hearing before the U.S. Supreme Court. In January of 1935, the Supreme Court again overturned the guilty verdicts, ruling in Norris v. Alabama that the systemic exclusion of blacks on Jackson County jury rolls denied a fair trial to the defendants and suggesting that the lower courts review Patterson's case as well. The second landmark decision in the Scottsboro Boys case would help integrate future juries across the nation. That's all for today's video. We hope you liked the video. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this.